The boardroom ultimate tumph pen felt like a lead weight in Ethan's hand. Across the mahogany table, 3 stone-faced board members waited while rain lashed the floor-to-ceiling windows of Grayson Industries. Sign by Friday, or we vote to remove you as CEO. Carlton Wheeler slid the contract closer. The banks want stability. That means a married man at the helm. Ethan's jaw tightened. At 32, he'd turned his father's failing shipping company into an empire. Yet none of that mattered. Because he hadn't done it with a wedding ring? This is archaic. It's business. Wheeler cut him off. Your mother agrees. As if summoned, Victoria Grayson entered in a cloud of Chanel no. 5. We've found a solution. She placed a dossier before him. Sophie Laurent, 29. Art teacher. Her family's gallery is drowning in debt. Ethan barely glanced at the photo. A woman with chestnut hair smiled beside a classroom of children. I'm not marrying a stranger. You'll meet tomorrow. Victoria's tone brooked no argument. The Laurent Gallery was your father's favorite. Sentimentality has its uses, and they'd gone. Daniel whistled low. Sophie Laurent, as in, don't. Ethan stalked to the window. 15 years hadn't dulled the memory of hazel eyes and paint-smudged fingers. His summer Sophie from Lake House Vacations.
Ain't the one who'd promised to
wait for him when his family moved abruptly. The one whose letters had stopped coming after 6 months. Meanwhile, across town, ... double quotes, you want me to what? Sophie's teacup rattled against its saucer in the gallery's back office. Her father coughed into his handkerchief. Just meet him, Sherry. The Graysons will save the gallery. Your mother's paintings? Would she want this? Sophie's throat tightened. She'd known this day might come when she found the stack of returned letters in her father's desk. Grayson, at his new boarding school, marked return to sender. The next afternoon, at the lawyer's office, Sophie wore her mother's pearls and a practiced smile. Until the door opened, time stopped. Grown dash up, Ethan was all sharp angles and restrained power, his once sun-bleached hair now dark as espresso. But those eyes still the color of lake water at dawn. You, his voice cracked. Sophie's fingers found the promise ring she still wore on a chain beneath her blouse, now the one he'd given her at 14, fashioned from a soda can tab. Hello, Ethan. She willed her voice steady. I believe we have a contract to sign. When Sophie accidentally mentions their childhood code word, Ethan realizes this is no stranger. But why did she agree to marry him now after ghosting him 15 years ago? And why does she still have that ridiculous soda tab ring? Like any adjustments to the characters or tone before I continue, I can make it darker, more suspenseful, or lean into the nostalgic. Romance aspect. Part 2. The wedding night, Arisa Koenanji. The cathedral smelled like lilies and lies. Sophie stood at the altar in her grandmother's vintage lace gown, gripping a bouquet of peonies so tightly the stems dented her palms. Across from her, Ethan looked like a GQ spread come to life, his tuxedo tailored to perfection, his expression carefully blank. You may kiss the bride. The priest's words hung in the air. Ethan's hands settled stiffly on Sophie's waist. As he leaned in, his lips brushed, hers chaste, cold, and the flashbulbs erupted. Smile, Mrs. Grayson, he murmured against her mouth. The investors are watching. The first lie UNRA VLS, the penthouse, was silent when they arrived. All sleek marble and floor-to ceiling windows overlooking the city. Sophie kicked off her heels, wincing as the blisters on her feet stung. You can take the master, Ethan said. Shrugging off his jacket, I'll sleep in the guest suite. Sophie nodded, reaching up to unclasp her necklace, the one with the soda tab ring hidden beneath her dress. A metallic ping sounded as it hit the floor. Ethan froze. The ring rolled toward his polished dress shoes. You kept it. His voice was dangerously quiet. Sophie's breath caught. It was a good luck charm. Bullshit. Snatched it up, the aluminum glinting in his palm. You stopped writing. You ghosted me. And now you're here because what? Daddy needed a bailout. Sophie's cheeks burned. You think I wanted this? Your mother came to us. She said you needed a wife to secure your company. Ethan's eyes darkened. Funny. She told me you begged for the merger to save your gallery. A beat of silence. Wait. Ah! Sophie's pulse spiked. You didn't know it was me? Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Enjoy your honeymoon, darling. The Wellington deal closes Monday. He looked up, realization dawning. She played us both. The first real Kai assessed the storm broke around midnight. Sophie sat on the penthouse balcony, her wedding dress traded for one of Ethan's old Harvard sweatshirts. Rain slicked the skyline, the city lights blurring into watercolor. You never got my letters? It wasn't a question. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, a whiskey glass dangling from his fingers. Not after the first 6. Sophie swallowed. Wrote every week for a year. The admission hung between them. Ethan crossed the balcony in 3 strides. His hand cradled her jaw, his thumb brushing the tear she hadn't realized had fallen. I looked for you, he admitted roughly, when I turned 18. Willowbrook said, your family had moved to Paris. Sophie laughed wetly. We were in Queens. Ethan's mouth crashed into hers. This kiss wasn't for cameras. It was 15 years of stolen summers and unanswered letters, of whispered promises under willow trees. Sophie fisted his shirt, pulling him closer and knocked at the door. Mr. Grayson? The driver's voice. Your mother requested I collect Mrs. Grayson's things from her apartment. Ethan pulled back, his breathing ragged. Tell my mother to go to hell. Sophie traced his lower lip with her thumb. We can't hide forever. Watch me, he growled, and kissed her again. The penthouse smelled of espresso and betrayal when Victoria arrived at dawn. Sophie froze mid-pour, the coffee carafe dripping onto Ethan's marble countertops as her mother-in-law's heels clicked across the foyer. Darling, Victoria chirped, eyeing Sophie's rumpled sweatshirt, Ethan's sweatshirt with a predator's smile. You're up early for a honeymoon. Ethan emerged from the bedroom, shirtless and scowling. We were just leaving. Victoria dropped a manila envelope on the breakfast bar. The Wellington contracts. They need your signature by noon. Her gaze flicked to Sophie's bare left hand. Where's your ring? Sophie instinctively touched the soda tab necklace beneath her collar. Here. Ethan slid a platinum band across. The counter, the matching one, gleamed on his own finger. We picked them out last night. A lie. Sophie had watched him call a jeweler at 3 a.m., its voice rough with something that wasn't just sleep. Victoria's manicured finger tapped the envelope. Sign them, and Daniel has something to show you. The gallery of Lestha Laurent Gallery was smaller than Ethan remembered. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light as Sophie led him past cracked display cases, her fingers trailing over chipped gilt frames. Papa kept it exactly as Mamang left it, she whispered. Then Ethan saw them. 3 oil paintings of Willowbrook Lake, hanging crookedly near the back. It's the same ones that had haunted his childhood study after they moved. Your mother painted these? His throat tightened. Sophie nodded. She sold them to a collector when we needed rent money. I never knew who my father. Ethan traced the familiar brushstrokes. He bought them the summer we moved away. Floorboard creaked. Daniel stood in the doorway holding a rusted lockbox. Need to see this? The Truth and I in Katha, lockbox. Spilled its secrets across Sophie's childhood bed. Dozens of letters, all stamped, returned to sender in crimson ink. Ethan's teenage scrawl on every envelope. I sent these, he said hoarsely. Sophie picked up one dated July 2009 this summer. After he left, I never got them. Daniel cleared his throat. Victoria had the post office intercept them. She paid off your super to send yours back too. He handed Ethan a faded bank slip. $5,000 a month to keep you both apart. Sophie's hands shook. Why? Because Grayson men don't marry French art teachers, came Victoria's voice from the doorway. She held a contract, their contract between blood-red nails.
Ow.
They marry for legacy. Which is why this has a dissolution clause. Ethan snatched the papers. What? Page 12, subsection B? Victoria smiled. The marriage automatically voids if Sophie's father dies within 5 years, which he will unless he gets that heart transplant. Sophie's world tilted. You knew about Papa's condition? Darling, Victoria purred. That's why I picked you. The first real FEGHD, the gallery's back office still smelled of turpentine. And desperation when Ethan finally exploded. You lied to me. He hurled the contract against the wall. This was never about saving the gallery, it was about your father's medical bills. Sophie flinched. And you married me to save your stocks. Don't act noble now. I would have paid for his treatment. You didn't have to trick you? Sophie's laugh was razor sharp. Yanked open a drawer, pulling out a yellowed newspaper clipping, a Grayson Industries scandal from 2009. Your mother ruined my family. She called in Papa's loans when Maman refused to sell her paintings to your father. We lost everything. Ethan went very still. That's why you left. Willowbrook. Sophie's tears fell hot on the newsprint. We couldn't even afford the rent on our tool shed. Outside, rain began to fall. Ethan reached for her. His phone buzzed. Text from the hospital. Mr. Lawrence, donor heart is here. Surgery scheduled. For 7 a.m., payment due up front. Victoria's voice slithered through his. Memory automatically voids if Sophie's father dies. Sophie was already grabbing her keys. Ethan caught her wrist. We're doing this together. The hospital fluorescence burned too bright as Sophie sprinted down the corridor, her wedding heels long abandoned. The scent of antiseptic choked her as she skidded to a stop outside ICU, where her father lay connected to a symphony of beeping. Machines as social worker blocked her path. Ms. Laurent, the transplant deposit is $450,000. We can't proceed without it's Mrs. Grayson now. Ethan's voice cut through the tension as he stepped beside her, his Amex black card gleaming between his fingers. Bill everything to Grayson Medical. The social worker's eyes widened. Your mother already called, she said. I know exactly what she said. Ethan pulled out his phone, displaying a document that made Sophie gasp, his father's will, stipulating that all medical debts of the Laurent family be paid in perpetuity. Tell Victoria her late husband disagrees. The secret in the WALO, lead while her father prepped for surgery. Sophie collapsed into the chapel pews, her hands shaking around a styrofoam cup of terrible coffee. Here, Ethan sat beside her, pressing a folded slip of paper into her palm. I carried this for 15 years. The creased sketch showed a lopsided wedding dress with Sophie plus Jamie, forever. Scrawled in bubble letters something she'd doodled at 13 during a lazy summer day by Willowbrook Lake. You kept this? Her voice cracked. Ethan's thumb brushed her knuckles. I kept everything. From his wallet tumbled more relics. A pressed dandelion from their first date. A movie ticket stub for the Princess Bride, the key to his childhood treehouse. Sophie's tears splattered on the fragile paper. All this time I thought you forgot me. Never. His lips grazed her temple. I built an empire trying to become someone you'd be proud of. The mother's Gambit de Victoria arrived as the sun rose, her Chanel suit immaculate despite the hour. Charming. Display of rebellion, she drawled, eyeing their clasped hands. But the Wellington deal closes at 9. You'll be at that board meeting, Ethan, alone. Sophie stiffened. His father's will has a loophole. Victoria's smile was scalpel sharp. The medical clause only activates if both parties uphold their vows. And dear... She dropped a fresh contract on the Bible between them. Your little marriage dissolves the moment Wellington signs. Ethan snatched the document. What the hell is this? Page 22. Our real agreement with Wellington. Victoria adjusted her pearls. They'll only invest if you remain unattached after 12 months. A temporary marriage for appearances, then... Poof. Sophie's stomach lurched. The clock above the altar ticked louder. 7:58 a.m. Her father's surgery had begun. Ethan's signature could save his company or her father's life. Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the ID. Wellington's waiting. Darling, choose. The first real VOW Ethan stood slowly, the contract crumpling in his fist. You're right, Mother. I do have to choose. He yanked the soda tab necklace from Sophie's throat and slid it onto her ring finger. I choose her. The chapel doors burst open. Daniel rushed in, waving a USB drive. Got it, Victoria's offshore accounts. Saw the bribes to keep them apart. Victoria paled, you wouldn't. Ethan kissed Sophie's knuckles. The aluminum ring cooled between them. Watch me. As the clock struck 8, two things happened simultaneously. A team of SEC agents entered the chapel. The OR nurse announced. Sophie's father's surgery was a success. Victoria's scream echoed through the halls as they led her away. Ethan pressed his forehead to Sophie's. For better or worse, remember? Sophie tangled her fingers in his. We wrote those vows at 14. 1 year later, the morning of their real wedding dawned with Willowbrook Lake glittering like liquid sapphire. Sophie stood barefoot on the dock in her mother's vintage lace gown, watching Ethan struggle with his tie in the reflection of the boathouse window. Need help? She called. He turned, tie dangling loose, eyes softening as they traced the soda tab ring, now welded onto a platinum band around her finger. Always. Sophie stepped close, her fingers brushing his throat as she nodded. The silk, nervous, terrified, its hands settled on her waist. What if I trip walking down the aisle? You built a multi-billion-dollar company, she laughed. But that was easy. His thumb traced the freckles on her collarbone, the ones he'd memorized at 14. This matters more. The Gallery Arabon guests mingled between her father's restored paintings and Ethan's surprise installation. The entire back wall covered in their childhood artifacts. The original treehouse blueprints, every returned letter. Framed in chronological order, a blown-up photo of them at 12, sticky with ice cream and sunlight. Daniel clinked his champagne flute. To the happy couple and to Victoria, whose prison jumpsuit almost matches the wedding colors. Laughter rippled through the crowd as Sophie's father raised his IV-free arm. To second chances. VOWS, they married at sunset on their dock, barefoot like they'd promised as kids. You once said my paintings were magic, Sophie whispered, pressing their joined hands to her chest where his ring lay warm against her skin. But you're the one who turned my life into art. Ethan's voice cracked. What? And you're the only home I've ever needed. As fireworks exploded over the lake, he kissed her slow and sweet and full of 15 years' worth of delayed dreams. Somewhere in the distance, a soda tab glinted in the grass, waiting to be found by the next generation of summer lovers.